Her desperate need for financial support led her into an unexpected and dangerous path, crossing paths with a cold-blooded assassin. Hello guys, welcome to my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so to get the latest Nigerian movies from us. Today, we're talking about a captivating new Nigerian movie that's more than just entertainment. It's packed with powerful lessons you won't want to miss. Let's dive right in. The movie begins with a young, handsome man named TIMINI, who wakes up from a horrific nightmare. Shaken, he gets out of bed, walks to the restroom, and splashes water on his face. Returning to his room, he lights a cigarette and begins to smoke. As he does, he pays a lady who had spent the night with him. She tries to talk to him, but he ignores her completely. Feeling dismissed, she quietly leaves the room. Meanwhile, that same night, in another location, a young man lies bleeding from his ear after being shot by an unknown gunman. The next morning, yet another man rushes into his hotel room, only to meet his tragic end moments later. Later that day in the evening, a young lady named Onome meets her friend Lillian at a pool party. Onome is desperate and pleads with Lillian for financial assistance so she can take care of her sick mother. Lillian reassures her to calm down and promises to help. She then approaches one of the wealthy men at the party and arranges for Onome to spend the night with him in exchange for money. Lillian leads Onome to Chief's room and explains that he will take care of all her needs if she agrees to stay with him. Onome is horrified by Lillian's proposition. Disappointed and angry, she lashes out at Lillian and insults Chief before storming out of the room. Chief, visibly displeased, tells Lillian that since Onome refused, she would have to replace her for the night. Meanwhile, that same night, TIMINI is seen observing a group of call girls. He picks one and invites her into his car. She immediately asks how much he plans to pay her, but TIMINI remains silent. Frustrated, she starts yelling at him, even accusing him of being a kidnapper. Angered, TIMINI shoves her out of his car. As he drives off, he nearly hits Onome, startling her badly. A few days later, a man is awakened by a phone call. As he picks up, an assassin quietly enters his room and kills him. Later that same day, another young man rushes into an apartment to retrieve a briefcase. But as he exits, he engages in a gunfight with an unknown assailant, resulting in his death. The assailant then takes the briefcase and disappears. The following day, TIMINI meets a colleague at a basketball court. They discuss a politician they have been monitoring and the progress of their mission before parting ways. The next day, during a political rally, a presidential candidate is delivering a speech when he is suddenly assassinated. Panic erupts as his supporters scatter in all directions. A few days later, a female political candidate steps out of her car only to be gunned down in a drive-by shooting. That night, Onome visits Lillian to apologize for her earlier outburst. She confesses that she's not used to the lifestyle Lillian is pushing her into and insists she can't sleep with men for money. Lillian grows angry and coldly tells her that unless she changes her mind and follows her to the club, she won't get any help. Desperate to save her mother, who needs a liver surgery, Onome realizes she has no other options. The next morning, TIMINI settles into his home when he receives a call from his boss with details about his next target. Though he doesn't reveal the name on the call, he promises to send TIMINI the details soon. After the call, TIMINI looks visibly troubled. He grabs his laptop to check out the identity of his next target. That night, Lillian and Onome prepare to go to the club. Onome feels extremely uncomfortable in her revealing outfit, but Lillian threatens her, insisting she get into the ride they ordered. Meanwhile, TIMINI arrives at the club and spots the man he's supposed to assassinate. He joins his friend at a table, keeping an eye on the target. Sometime later, Lillian and Onome enter the club and join TIMINI and his friend at their table. Onome still appears uneasy and out of place. After the party, Lillian leaves with TIMINI's friend. While TIMINI insists that Onome come with him, she nervously asks where he's taking her, but he doesn't answer. Instead, he silently opens the car door, waiting for her to get in. Using Onome as part of his plan, TIMINI traced the man he was assigned to assassinate to a hotel. Pretending to be a guest, he checked in and subtly noted the room number from the key card his target would be staying in. Turning to Onome, he suggested they leave and go to his house. At first, Onome was hesitant, but she eventually agreed to follow him. When they arrived at TIMINI's house, he offered her a drink before they both went upstairs. Later, Onome took a shower, feeling deeply guilty about what she had gotten herself into. Meanwhile, TIMINI sat alone in the dark, smoking a cigarette. He called his colleague to provide an update about the man he had trailed to the hotel. The next morning, Onome came downstairs looking for TIMINI, but couldn't find him. Instead, she saw a note he had left for her. At the hotel, TIMINI executed his mission, killing his assigned target. However, he also encountered another young man in the room and killed him too. Returning home, TIMINI headed straight to the kitchen and found Onome cooking. Surprised, he asked what she was doing. Onome replied that she was making breakfast, but TIMINI told her she didn't have to and suggested she leave. Onome felt awkward and hurt by his tone. Meanwhile, Lillian had been trying to reach Onome through multiple calls, but to no avail. She hadn't seen her since the previous day and was growing worried. As Onome prepared to leave TIMINI's apartment, he handed her some money. She accepted it, and as she was about to go, TIMINI asked if she could at least thank him. With pain in her eyes, she softly said, "Thank you." He then asked about the breakfast she had prepared. They sat at the dining table eating in silence until TIMINI broke it by asking why she had slept with him for money. Onome firmly told him that she wasn't a call girl. TIMINI, however, found it hard to believe, assuming she was just like other women in prostitution. Offended and angry, Onome snapped back, explaining she only did it because her mother was sick and urgently needed surgery. With tears in her eyes, she stormed out of the house. Later that day, a wealthy man arrived at the hospital with his bodyguard to view the body of his deceased son, one of the two men TIMINI had killed in the hotel room. Grief-stricken, he turned to his bodyguard and ordered him to find the person responsible for his son's death. That evening, Onome returned to Lillian's apartment. Upon seeing her, Lillian felt relieved and asked what had happened. Onome couldn't bring herself to explain and simply requested a glass of water. Later that night, Onome visited her mother in the hospital, bringing fruits and food. She sat by her mother's bedside, assuring her that she would soon get well. Meanwhile, that same night, TIMINI received an urgent call from his boss. His superior insisted they needed to meet and abruptly ended the call. The next day, TIMINI met with his friend, who informed him that the young man he had killed alongside his main target in the hotel was the son of an influential drug cartel boss. He also mentioned that he had managed to hack the hotel's CCTV footage to erase any trace of TIMINI, urging him to lay low for a while. However, the cartel's bodyguard, Ojidi, was already examining the CCTV footage for clues about his boss's son's killer. Later that day, Onome went to TIMINI's house to apologize for the way she had spoken to him days earlier. TIMINI looked at her coldly, saying he didn't see any reason for her to come and explain herself. Feeling uneasy, Onome turned to leave, but TIMINI called her back, offered her a drink, and started a conversation. That night, TIMINI was jolted awake by another nightmare. Onome, startled, asked him what was wrong and if he wanted to talk about it. He shook his head and told her to go back to sleep. Gently, she comforted him until he drifted off again. The following morning, Onome was in the kitchen making breakfast when TIMINI joined her, acting unusually affectionate and playful. It seemed he was beginning to fall for her. After breakfast, they relaxed in the living room, chatting like a couple. A few days later, Onome visited Lillian, who was thrilled for her. Lillian teased her, saying she had bagged herself a man, and even confessed she was a little jealous. They both laughed. That same day, TIMINI returned home and couldn't find Onome. He spotted a note she left, saying she had gone to see her mother. At the end of the note, she wrote, "I love you." TIMINI smiled as he read her words aloud. Later, in his room, TIMINI opened a box containing photos of Ojidi, the same man who had ordered his mother's death. Staring at Ojidi's picture, TIMINI vowed to take revenge on him. The next day, Ojidi returned to the CCTV control room to review the footage again. This time, he caught a clear glimpse of TIMINI in one of the frames. Instantly, he recognized him and knew TIMINI was the man who killed the cartel boss's son. Later, Ojidi made a call to one of his men, instructing him to dig up any information he could find about TIMINI. The next day, while TIMINI was massaging Onome's feet, he asked about her mother. Onome told him that her mother's surgery was scheduled to take place in a few weeks. As they were talking, TIMINI's phone rang, and he excused himself to take the call. At the same time, an old friend of Onome's called her. She picked up and chatted for a while before ending the call. When TIMINI returned, he asked who she had been speaking with. Onome calmly explained it was just an old friend. But TIMINI, consumed by suspicion and jealousy, believed she was sleeping around with other men. Offended by his accusation, Onome felt deeply insulted. Their conversation escalated into a heated argument, and Onome stormed out of the house. Outside, Onome asked the gateman for directions to a certain place before leaving. Meanwhile, one of Ogidi's hitmen who had been sent to spy on TIMINI called Ogidi to report. He told him they were about to break into TIMINI's house to leave a warning message. When they arrived, one of the men shot the gateman before entering the house. At that moment, TIMINI was meeting his friend, who informed him that his face had been identified in the hotel's CCTV footage. He urged TIMINI to lay low for a while. Soon after, TIMINI received another call from his friend, warning him that his house had been raided and advising him to go into hiding. Rushing back home, TIMINI found the lifeless body of his gateman. Panicked, he ran inside, desperately searching for Onome, fearing she might also be in danger. Meanwhile, Onome returned to the house, only to be shocked by the sight of the dead gateman. Terrified, she turned and left immediately. TIMINI, still trying to reach her on the phone, realized she had left her phone behind in his house. He quickly left and drove to Lillian's house to check if Onome was there. Lillian told him she hadn't seen Onome. As he was about to leave, he noticed a suspicious man entering Lillian's compound. He instructed Lillian to hide in her room. When the intruder entered, TIMINI swiftly took him out before any harm could be done. Meanwhile, as Onome was walking along a lonely road, a group of men jumped out of a car and forcefully bundled her into the vehicle. While driving with Lillian, TIMINI received a call from Ogidi. On the other end, Ogidi coldly informed him that he was holding Onome captive. Determined to save her, TIMINI began preparing for the confrontation. He gathered his guns and called Ogidi, demanding his location. Once he got it, TIMINI set out for Ogidi's hideout. Arriving at an uncompleted building where Onome was held, TIMINI stealthily took out Ogidi's men one by one. But eventually, one of them overpowered him and brought him face to face with Ogidi. Seeing TIMINI, Onome cried out, telling him he shouldn't have risked his life for her. TIMINI, however, demanded that Ogidi release Onome. In that tense moment, shocking truths began to surface. Ogidi revealed to Onome that TIMINI's real name was Peter Jude and accused him of killing his own parents. Stunned, Onome looked at TIMINI for answers. TIMINI, with pain in his voice, admitted it, but clarified that Ogidi had manipulated him into doing it. Ogidi confirmed the claim, laughing cruelly as he explained how he had forced TIMINI to murder his parents, turning him into the very thing his father had stood against. TIMINI's father had been a fearless journalist who fought against corruption before Ogidi had him killed. Furious, TIMINI spat in Ogidi's face. Enraged, Ogidi slapped him hard across the face. A fierce shootout broke out between the two men. Amid the chaos, TIMINI managed to untie Onome and urged her to run for her life. Once she was safe, TIMINI challenged Ogidi to settle things once and for all. The two stepped out of their hiding spots, guns drawn. In a final standoff, they fired at each other simultaneously. Ogidi was killed instantly, while TIMINI collapsed to the ground, unconscious. After some time, he slowly regained consciousness. This gripping tale shows how cycles of violence and revenge destroy lives. It teaches us that pain and loss can push people down dark paths, but there's always a chance for redemption and change. It also reminds us that trust and loyalty are fragile, and manipulation can turn even good people into villains. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more interesting updates on the latest Nigerian movies. See you next time.